was problematic for two reasons. One, I'm not known as that. That is my name. It's not a pseudonym. It's not something that I decided to use as a public name. It is my birth name. So I'm not known as anything. I'm named what I am named. That's number one. Secondly, the idea of saying that someone is an admitted white supremacist, what I said to you, as I recall, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm sure you can phrase it directly if you'd like. I have no problem with anything that I wrote to you. But what I said is that it's an incomplete characterization because I have also admitted to and said that I am an anti-racist. You conveniently decide that the one admission is honest and the other admission is dishonest. That's fine, and it's certainly your right to determine that in your opinion one is a true statement and one is not, but it isn't fair and it isn't ethical to represent me as if I've only admitted to one. I have admitted to being both someone who has internalized racism, and therefore on whatever linguistic level you choose, you can say that means I've admitted to being a racist, fine. However, I have also admitted to being an anti-racist and having internalized anti-racist norms. And if you're being intellectually honest, you should mention both of those. When you do not, and you do not, it seems to me to be a mischaracterization of what I have said. I have been very clear and very specific. What I have admitted to is the internalization of racist and white supremacist norms and attitudes as a function of growing up in a white supremacist society. And in my emails to you, I analogized that to some other examples. I said, for example, that when you grow up in a capitalist, consumerist, or materialist society, you also internalize aspects of consumerist behavior and materialism. However, you can make the choice to turn against that and not to engage in consumerist and materialist and capitalist behavior. Yet you can never be free of it unless capitalism is abolished. Same thing is true with white supremacy, with patriarchy, with any kind of systemic injustice. And so it's not that you've mischaracterized. I think you have only partially accurately characterized, and I don't think that that's particularly ethical.
Okay. I want to be very clear with that's why I said Tim Wise, extraordinary with words. You got to really be careful with that. I have concluded non-white people are very confused about racism, white supremacy, and I could be incorrect. I'll stand on my program. I think my program easily evidences that non-white people are very confused about racism, white supremacy. The number one thing I want to point out, I didn't ask him about it being unethical, didn't ask him being about a partial truth. I said, can you please tell me what I have said to misrepresent you? So I want to ask a very direct, this is yes or no. Is it inaccurate to say the guest on today's program is known as Tim Wise? Is that an inaccurate statement?
It's inaccurate, yes. I'm named Tim
Wise.
Okay.
Okay. You are not known as Tim Wise. Is that correct?
There's a difference. There's a big
Wait a minute. You are not known as Tim Wise.
I guess I am, but I am named
Okay.
Tim Wise.
Okay, hang on. That's real important. This is simple. And simple things like this really highlights for me why I strongly suspect Tim Wise is not about replacing white supremacy with justice. I have referenced a lot of white people as the admitted white supremacists known as such and such and such. I have referenced a lot of white people as the suspected racist known as da-da-da-da. You are the only person to flip out and say, oh, that's unethical, that's a misrepresentation, when you've already said it's irrelevant what non-white people think, what they have to say. I don't do this work for non-white people. I do this for myself, to reclaim my own humanity. It should be irrelevant whether I say Tim Wise, known as Tim Wise, whatever. I'm not calling you something other than Tim Wise. You are known as Tim Wise. I am known as Gus T. Renegade. There's nothing incorrect, discourteous, disrespectful about that. And if you really want to know, I say it to further create suspicion about you, and there's nothing incorrect about that. We have agreement on non-white people, victims of white supremacy, should be suspicious of you. So I'm on my job as an attempted counter-racist to cultivate suspicion about you. I'll even share an anecdote. One non-white person who saw you when you came to this area, he said, he had an autographed copy of your book. He was a fan. He said, I wonder if his last name is really Wise. I actually wanted to ask him that. I thought maybe that was just a joke, to kind of be like, I'm really smart, I'm Tim Wise, ha, ha, ha. I'd never thought anything about your name being false. made up a pseudonym. It never entered my mind. I just thought that was kind of funny that he said that, and I got the humor in that he was saying maybe he did make up Wise. Maybe that's not his last name. I don't know. I do know you are known as Tim Wise, and I don't think there's anything incorrect, inaccurate, unethical about that. In fact, I find it very suspicious that you take such umbrage with me using that to reference you, particularly as you are not the only person that I reference as known as da-da-da-da-da. Number two.
Can I respond to that when you're done?
When I'm done, and I'm not done.
Okay.
Number two, I have consistently, even on this program today, referenced you as an alleged anti-racist. We're going to shoot again. This is yes or no. Is it anything incorrect about me referencing you as an alleged anti-racist?
No, I think that's fair.
Okay. Fair. Catch that again. Accurate. I don't want to use the term fair. We don't want to be associating terms with white. I think it's accurate as an alleged.
You're breaking up a little bit. I'm not hearing you. Hold on. Say that last part again. Hello? Hello? I didn't hear that last part.
Can
Hello?
I can hear you. Can I?
It's sort of breaking up. Hold on. I don't know why that's happening. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, now I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Say that again.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I can hear you now, but I missed that last part, like the last 20 seconds or so.
Oh, okay. Most of it was just me saying hello and the distortion, but okay, we're good. Yeah, okay, let me get my train of thought back now. My analogy is, and I've used this for not just you, other white people, suspected racists. I've used the same analogy because they do the same thing that you do. I'm working against racism. I've written these books, or I've given these talks. I go to these churches. I talk about this every day. Look at my blog. You can't say that I'm not out here talking against racism as a bad thing. But it's like somebody saying, I'm a house builder. That's what I do. I build houses. Hey, I'm homeless. I need a home. Give me a house. And they say, okay, let's get a house. And we tromp around in the mud, and we're chopping down trees and sawing and hammering and da-da-da-da-da, and I don't have my house. And we keep working, and we're sawing and chomping, and I don't have my house. And a year goes by, and I don't have my house. And the person is steady saying, I'm a house builder. Did you know I build houses? I'm a house builder. I build houses. Where is my house? The people who are anti-racist, racism should be gone. And I don't see any evidence that racism is gone. It's still here. And in fact, when I see you, the impact that you have, in my view, perpetuates racism. I'm not even getting closer to my house. I'm getting farther away. When you come, nails are disappearing. Wood is disappearing. I'm further from the house than when we started. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to say you're anti-racist, as Mr. Fuller said at the beginning, we're not paying for yardage. I don't care how many books any white person or non-white person writes about racism. I don't care how many talks are given about racism. I don't care how many times you or anyone else alleges to be against racism. When the problem is solved, then we'll give out the kudos. And particularly one of the people that you know, the admitted white supremacist known as Jessica Pettit. She was on this program twice. She was furious when I said there shouldn't be kudos and applause for anyone, Dr. Welson, Mr. Fuller, you, me, or anyone else. As long as this system exists, there's too much work to do. We're not jumping up and down just because somebody sounded good today.
Sure.
And she was furious. She stopped. She said, that is the most offensive thing. She interrupted me and got huffy.
Right.
What? Just because I'm not willing to come and hug Tim Wise and pat him on the back? No. I'm on my job. I'm doing exactly what you said is the logical thing to do, to be suspicious. That's one of the key reasons why I keep referencing you as as the admitted white supremacist known as Tim Wise. It cultivates suspicion, and just the fact that you don't like it further encourages me to keep doing it, just because a white person is not pleased with my efforts. If you can give a quick response, because I have other questions, and I definitely want to get to the phone line. Sure. Be concise, please.
Sure. I absolutely am not offended by you saying, that there should be no kudos until the system is dismantled. It makes perfect sense to me that you would say that and that you would feel that, so that's fine. as far as the part about known as Tim Wise, the thing that I was saying in that email and the thing that I'm saying now, I had no doubt that the motivation for your doing it was to cast suspicion. And the only thing that I don't appreciate, and I don't mind, you being suspicious of me and saying, for example, alleged anti-racist, that's fine. The part about my name, though, I mean, this is my family. This is my family name. It is not concocted. My guess is your birth name is not Renegade. Some people make up names. Other people do not. I did not. That is my family name, and it's a family of which I'm quite proud. So when the implication is made, which you have all but admitted to by saying that you do it to cast suspicion, when the implication is made that this may be a pseudonym or something that is made up, I take it as not a racial thing. I couldn't care less about that. I take it as a criticism or a slam or an implicit slur against my family. Thus, I do not appreciate it. It is my name. It is the name that I was given. It has always been my name. You may or may not choose to believe that. If you choose not to believe that, then there is nothing that anyone could tell you about anything that you'd likely believe, and that is fine, and I am amused by that. But the reality is that that's my name, and when you attempt to, I think, cast doubt upon that as if somehow I just chose that because it was sort of cute and sort of smart, I take it as a criticism of my family, not as a white person, but as someone who that is the name of my people. And so I think that's what to me is absurd. There's nothing that would prevent you from saying the alleged anti-racist or the admitted white supremacist named Tim Wise. That would not diminish the force of your argument at all. It would not diminish the force of your suspicion at all. And so I think there's no reason not to do it as a matter of common courtesy, but that's up to you.
I find nothing discourteous about it at all. You said absurd. What I find absurd is the system of white supremacy. And I get to do my Godfather line. This is not personal, Mr. Wise. I do not know your family. I don't know anyone that's a friend of yours other than Dr. Moore, I guess, and Jessica Pettit, but I don't really know them personally. This is not personal. This is the business. We have chosen, you and I, to work against racism, white supremacy, and a part of that is going to be uncomfortable. It should be uncomfortable for you as a white person and an admitted racist. It should be uncomfortable for you for this system to be dismantled, for your privilege to be deconstructed. It should be uncomfortable. I don't think there's anything discourteous about you being referenced as the admitted white supremacist known as Tim Wise. In fact, I think even to spend that much time troubling about this, I find absurd. I'm not calling you something other than your name. I have not name called you. I don't reference your work as bullshit or anything else. Known as Tim Wise, and you're not the only one. It's not even like I'm picking on you personally. It's a business strategy that is not rooted in casting suspicion on your family name. It's rooted in casting suspicion about you as a white person in the system of white supremacy, and you've already agreed there's nothing incorrect, illogical, immoral about that. I have two important things I need to get to, but I am going to go to the phone lines because I know people called in and they have questions. I'm going to go to the phone lines and double check with Justice, and then I'll finish with my two, because I do have a request that I want to ask Mr. Wise, but I want to go to the phone lines to make sure that people do get to ask their questions. The number is 347-215-6071. Today I do not want comments. This is not soapbox time. This is questions. Ask your question. Try to be as concise as possible, but we're not reading poems today or anything else. This is we're strictly business today. So 615. I'm sorry. 111. Someone's calling in at 111. You have a hand up. If you have a question you would like to ask Mr. Wise, you're live.
Okay, I'm taking the chance that that's me.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wise, I've heard you say that you do not recall ever consciously practicing racism by an act of omission rather than commission, and that you do not believe that people who are not white are lacking in ability to understand the problem of racism and white supremacy. Do you think it is reasonable for us to believe that white people could have dominated people who are not white in a ratio of 9-to-1, while doing so subconsciously and or passively?
Oh no. At the systemic level, I don't think that it's possible for that system to have been created or maintained only on the basis of subconscious bias. No. But I do think that subconscious, or what psychologists now call implicit bias, is certainly a very prevalent problem in the modern era. But historically, look, the system of white supremacy was created very much on purpose. It didn't just happen. It